I want to speak about two of our young FBA brothers down there in Houston who were racially targeted and attacked by no good race soldiers, Ku Klux Klan members with a badge for no good reason at all other than the color of their skin, which is a bunch of nonsense. And one of our FBA brothers was fairly light skinned, because in all actuality, he was biracial, which goes to show you that the war has always been on blackness in the system of racism, white supremacy. They give a damn, if you half black or not. If you got black and we got visible black features, in all actuality, you black. Now our young brothers, are suing the police officer involved in the department, which they should sue the pants off of them for this nonsense. And one of the white supremacist race soldiers, involved in this has got three charges of police misconduct on him. And as up until recently, he was still working in law enforcement, which goes to show you that they don't hold these white supremacist degenerates accountable. They just move them to different areas in the law enforcement agency, which is a bunch of nonsense. So I got the audio and the video of this nonsense, and we're going to walk through and talk about it how we normally do, family. Fair use.
Like, I can't even see red or blue lights without my heart just beating fast.
Well,
the whole situation traumatized the brother. He was just trying to be a good Samaritan and go help out a friend, who was having car troubles and, ended up being, racially attacked by race soldiers.
At 6 o'clock and only on 2 tonight, excessive force lawsuits are stacking up against the Harris County Sheriff's Office and now a former deputy.
This after a video captured that deputy body slamming a high school student. A new lawsuit just filed this week alleges civil rights violations after the arrest of 2 Langham Creek high school students who have since been cleared of any criminal wrongdoing.
KPRC2's Bryce Newberry joining us now from the Sheriff's Office with the victims' fight for justice.
This is now the 3rd lawsuit the Sheriff's Office has faced, all connected to this one former deputy who up until just a couple months ago still worked for a local constable's office.
That's nonsense, which goes to show you he was still working in law enforcement for a constable's office. They don't hold these white supremacist race soldiers accountable. They just move them to different areas in law enforcement. And you would think they would learn, they lesson on, making this guy hand in his badge and put some charges on this white supremacist degenerate. But let's continue.
This new lawsuit has similar allegations as all the past, allegations of racial profiling, malicious prosecution, and use of excessive force.
He's just a race soldier.
Just weeks before graduation, cell phone video captured Langham Creek senior Seth Palumbo being ripped from his car and thrown to the ground, all at the hands of former Harris County Sheriff's Deputy Christopher Bolin.
I remember being assaulted. I remember being scared. I remember my day completely being turned around and taken to a place that I couldn't even fathom.
Palumbo hasn't forgotten that April 2023 day when he got taken to jail and charged with assault of a peace officer.
He didn't assault, nobody. Good that they threw them, fabricated charges up. See, in the system of racism, white supremacy, them race soldiers, what they, wish they could, criminalize is the blackness. If they had a form, on a documentation to, make blackness a crime, they would in all actuality, because the only thing these brothers were guilty of is driving while black. And in the system of racism, white supremacy, that's looked at as a no-no, which is a bunch of nonsense. I don't rock with that whole narrative, but let's continue.
After dash camera video showed those officers approach his car with their weapons drawn, claiming he made an illegal turn. 10 days later, the case got dismissed when prosecutors found no probable cause.
And never.
Because they fabricated it, like I said. If race soldiers had a, column or a section to, make blackness a crime, they'd do that. But let's continue.
Never was I told what I did wrong. Never was I told what I was slammed for or put in handcuffs for, detained for.
Palumbo had just left his high school. He found out his football teammate ran out of gas and was on his way to fill up water bottles with gas to help him get back on the road.
I was absolutely confused on how it went from my son's run out of gas.
Only in a system of racism, white supremacy, where they turn black people being the good Samaritan and helping out their fellow brother or sister into a crime, which is a bunch of nonsense.
He's potentially being incarcerated.
Christopher Willis Sr.'s son was the stranded driver that day, also accused of obstructing a roadway, a charge later dismissed.
Nobody made any attempt to de-escalate the situation as per their policy and treat these young men with any form of humanity.
Attorney Terry Henderson Peden filed this lawsuit this week, accusing Deputy Bolin and 5 others of...
Family, I want you to look at the names of all of them officers involved, and they all need to be charged up, and hit with some, kind of crime, because in all actuality, this is a black hate crime. This is why we need those black hate crime, bill put into effect, ASAP, to protect and insulate our people from this nonsense, so we have added protection against these race soldiers, Ku Klux Klan members with a badge who, think they can run around here and, run amok. But, look at the names of them police officers, family, nothing but white supremacists and tether Latino collaborators to the system of racism, white supremacy. And let's continue.
Violating the teen's constitutional rights, including unlawful arrest and abuse of power.
We're not going to tolerate this form of Gestapo-type policing, of racial discrimination and profiling of black men.
After an internal affairs investigation, Deputy Bolin was fired.
Good that lawyer, that brother called it out for what it is. And then, he said black man. He just got to the nitty gritty of the root of it. The crime, what they wish they could put on the paperwork is blackness. And good that lawyer, that brother got to the nitty gritty and didn't come with some, discrimination on color people and throw these other groups in there. He just got to the nitty gritty. We ain't gonna tolerate this against, these type of actions being committed against black men. But let's continue. Black people. But let's continue.
Fired. Another deputy got suspended and transferred to another unit, while the sheriff's office says the 4 others received written reprimand. But records show just weeks.
Written reprimands, transferred to another office is, nothing but a vacation and a slap on the wrist. They don't hold these, degenerate race soldiers up to no, penalty. They should have to turn their badge in and never be able to practice, law enforcement again, because they got a racial bias, and that racial bias is they God and their religion is the system of racism, white supremacy.
Later, Bolin got hired by the Precinct 2 Constable's office, where he worked up until February, when he resigned in lieu of being fired.
Nonsense.
The chief says he wouldn't have been hireable had
and he got to resign. That's very telling. They didn't even fire his degenerate behind.
they known his full past.
I have a high respect for those in uniform, so to see this happen and see him abuse his position, it just burns me up.
Willis doesn't want to see Bolin work in law enforcement again, now knowing his alleged pattern. He also faces an excessive force lawsuit for a different 2023 stop of this driver, seen on dash cam being punched several times.
Why do you think that?
And he was, committing some, racial attack on another brother, punching him, and trying to rip him out of the car. If you've seen that, in that little piece of video footage that just passed, family. But let's continue.
That deputy treated you that way?
As somebody who is black and white, I'm not one to just sit here and play the race card, but it definitely felt a little racist.
This new lawsuit claims the sheriff.
Brother, you right for calling it out for what it is. That's a, anti-black hate crime, and it was done in all actuality because you black, in the system of racism, white supremacy, even if you half black or got some visible black features, you still black, the crime is against the blackness. If they had a category where they can, check off on a race soldier's, checklist or they paperwork, to criminalize blackness, they would in all actuality. And it's a bunch of nonsense. And I want to say to the family, stay safe out there, to be aware is to be alive. And just my thoughts on the matter, but put some punishment, put some charges on these degenerate white supremacists. Peace.